just another comic review. These are our frenzy faves.
Okay, today our frenzy faves are Under the Radar, Star Trek, the original series episodes.
Ooh, that's a good one. Kick it off, Chris. What are some of your, Star Trek episodes that are some of your favorite that you think don't get a lot of attention?
Well, thanks, Professor. Now, it would have been kind of easy for the Professor and I to pick our favorites. I think we would certainly mention Trouble with Tribble,
Sure.
City on the Edge of Forever.
Yep.
And those would be our list. And I don't know how interesting that would be, but I kind of thought that Professor did a pretty cool pivot here and said, you know what? Why don't you think about the underrated episodes with that? So with that, I had to give this one some thought. And we're going to break this down by seasons. So we'll pick a respective episode from season 1, season 2, and season 3. Mm-hmm. And first off, I'll take season 1 with my underrated episode for season 1. And I want to give some honorable mentions to the episodes This Side of Paradise. And who could not forget where we see Spock and Jill Ireland, and Spock is just frolicking in this kind of like this jumpsuit, and he's swinging from a tree. I mean, I just really dig that.
Frolicking very often.
No, you don't. And I got to dig This Side of Paradise. It's a good one. Yeah, I'm also fond of the Carbonite Maneuver. Oh, yeah. It was one of my buddies in Memphis's favorite episodes from back in the day, if only because of the last screenshot that you get in the closing credits. You see this monstrous alien, and that creeped the heck out of my little buddy friend, named Jason back in the day. And he always wondered what episode that was from. So his mom kind of paid attention, and when the Carbonite Maneuver finally popped up, aha, that's it. Yeah. So that was like one of my buddy's favorite movie, and it's a good back and forth, with a young Clint Howard.
Yeah,
that one. That's young. Really good. Very young Clint Howard. Fine episode. I dig that one. The Menagerie is a really, really good two-parter. Yeah. That's one of the ones that our mascot of the show, Robin,
it's a good one.
Thought, hey, that's a great episode. That's worthy of a mention. So I'm going to mention that here. Thank you very much, Robin. I gave this one some thought, and I will circle back to this one because whenever it pops up, I always really, really appreciate it with how it's done. It's a nice ensemble cast, and I'm going to choose the Galileo 7. The plot of this episode is this. First Officer Spock leads a scientific team from the Enterprise aboard the shuttlecraft Galileo. It's an ill-fated mission because things really, really go bad. He's faced with some tough decisions when the shuttle crashes on a planet populated by these aggressive giants. One of the crew members is killed. The people on board want to give this man a decent burial. Spock says there's no time for it. We can't do this. Spock is doing everything by the book, leading his first command, and he's being questioned by the rest of his crew. And the humans are getting really emotional, but they want things done a certain way, and they're questioning Spock's authority, and Spock doesn't know what to do with respect to this. They decide to get the shuttlecraft working. They get it in orbit, and it seems hopeless that the Enterprise will find them. They have a time limit. There's only so much time before they can do this exhaustive search of this entire planet to find the crew members. And Spock decides, you know what? I'm going to do something irrational. I'm going to jettison the fuel. It basically appears as a flare. Sulu sees it. They double back. And just before the shuttlecraft incinerates, everyone's rescued. It's the moment that I really, really dig is when Kirk, portrayed by Shatner, finds out that the crew is safely aboard. He just sort of gives this, clenches his right fist and just feels, vindication. I went back and we got them. They're saved, and we just did it in the nick of time. Didn't give up on them. And I think it's a really, really standout episode. It's a good ensemble cast with some great guest stars. I think the acting is brilliant, and it's a really well-written series. And it also sees Spock commissioned with his first command, and things don't go well when you think it's got to just be this, routine mission with some, requisite peril, but certainly nothing they could have foreseen. And it's just a really, really gripping and adventurous episode, in my opinion. Yeah. Professor, I will turn it over to you. What is your underrated episode from season 1?
That was a great choice, by the way, that Galileo 7
Well, thank you. Yeah. Well, I think you've got a great choice here.
Well, this is actually one of my favorite, it may be my favorite Star Trek episode. It's The Devil in the Dark. The Enterprise travels to Janus 6, which is a mining colony. And Kirk, Spock, and McCoy go down to the planet, and there's an engineer down there who would be a very good that guy in that show. he tells that his men are being killed. There's some kind of creature loose in the mine tunnels, and it just appears out of nowhere, and then it disappears. And there are these caves and whatnot, these tunnels appearing all over the place. So they go and they are able to find this creature. And they find that the creature is the Horda, and it's a silicon-based life form. And all of these little nodules that have been around this mining colony turn out to be the Horda's eggs. And the Horda is just protecting his family. And he's in this, so they're trying to figure out what the heck is going on. And Kirk senses that this Horda isn't just a killer, that there's something else going on. And Spock uses the Vulcan mind meld to determine why it's killing the miners. And that's why they find out about the eggs and stuff like that. Couple of interesting things about this episode. Shatner's father had just passed away, and he was going to the funeral or to the wake or whatever. And while this was being filmed, and he has a really interesting low-key vibe that's very different from other episodes that he's been in. And I have always assumed that it was part of the way he felt in that time. Also, an item, the Horda is one of the only space females that Kirk doesn't hook up with. Maybe it's just not his type, maybe? I don't know. Little pizza-looking thing. But really, more seriously, I really like how the miners, once they realize what's happening, that these nodule things are the Horda's eggs, they are like totally agree that these Horda eggs must be protected, that they are at fault for the deaths, that this is not just a crazed monster. This is something that's happening because of them. And there's no, we still have a job to do pushback. And, this idea is, we have this creature, even though this creature has been killing us, once we understand it, we can make friends with it and get them to work together with us. And that for me is everything that's about Star Trek. It's about learning and meeting and overcoming differences and stuff like that. And I absolutely loved it. And I believe this is, if not the first, I think it's one of the first examples of the mind meld. That, I think that's pretty interesting. Are you a fan of the mind meld, Chris, and how it's used in Trek?
I am. I really am. And I think it's an effective plot device, and I really, really dig it. I have to commend the cast and the acting here, because this Horda creature, effects of what they are, and the budget they have, right. The Horda does look somewhat menacing, but standing still, I can't think that the guys are too threatened by this thing. That said, the actors really, really do a great job of selling it. You ask about the mind meld. It's a fantastic device, and who wouldn't want that particular power to have this telepathy to appear with respect to this? Even used it up until the last episode, Turnabout Intruder, which we happen to have on MeTV last night at the time of this recording, and just to see it used with respect to that. I dig it. Professor, do you like the mind meld and how it was used over the course of the series?
I think, it goes from being a very intimate thing that you only do in special occasions to I have another one coming up where it's used 3 times in the same episode. So I think sometimes it's used well. Here it's used very well. But then other times I think it's used as a little bit of a crutch. A plot device crutch in the later sloppier seasons and episodes. But yeah, I do, in this case, want to give a special shout out to Ken Lynch, who played the mining engineer. Excellent work.
Indeed. And I think one of that guy.
Yeah, yep, absolutely. Good guy. So what else do you got? Season 2. Tell us what you got, Chris.
Okay, we're moving on to season 2. I want to give an honorable mention to the episode A Piece of the Action. I was really, really close to doing that one. It had some great guest stars, including Vic Tayback. It's one of Robin's faves, our mascot of the show. She really, really digs A Piece of the Action. Hey, anyone up for a game of Fizbin? Okay, well, get up to me later. I was so close to choosing Mirror Mirror. I really, really dig the premise of that. That's sort of the introduction to like these alternate universes. And we've got the goateed Spock, which has sort of been its own thing and entity and sort of parodied with respect to that. And how cool is it of an episode where people parody just by putting on a goatee? That's the alternate version of yourself. You want an alternate universe version of yourself? You put a goatee on, and that's the alternate
perfect.
version of yourself. The perfect. Yeah. So I was so close to picking that one. But I thought it was kind of cheating because I think it's a lot of people's favorites. So I kind of took a step back and I thought, well, what else could I choose? So I chose Obsession. Now, the plot of this one, Captain Kirk becomes really obsessed with killing a deadly cloud-like entity. 11 years prior, Kirk felt he had an opportunity to kill the creature when it attacked its crew. And we're compelled to go all in on this odyssey that Kirk and the insane steps he has to take just to hunt this creature down and finally rid its existence. Looking at it from a personal level, though, I was asking myself, hey, who doesn't want a chance to kind of correct one of your biggest life regrets? Yeah, I mean, I think everybody, if you ask that question, they'd all say yes. But in this one, Kirk really, really goes over the edge. He endangers his crew. More people are getting killed. And he's going to such extreme lengths to get his, quote, pound of flesh in this one. And I thought it was an outstanding performance by Shatner. I thought it was a well-written episode. And just the way we do get some final closure and redemption at the final end. And there's also a supporting character that Kirk knew his father. And I think there's a little bit of a bonding moment. These are men where, hey, we're not going to basically obey orders. We're going to make some sacrifices here. And I thought it was a real gut wrench of an episode, and one I think that's overrated. So, Professor, I'm going to stop right there because I want you to talk about this episode because it's one of my favorites, and I really, really love your selection. Can you tell us what it is?
You bet. So my selection is Journey to Babel. So the Enterprise is transporting a bunch of diplomatic delegations. There's going to be a conference, one of these big intergalactic conferences on Babel, regarding the future of the planet Corridon. And Corridon has a lot of minerals, and there's a lot of conflicting opinions about whether they should allow it into the Federation or not. And it's usually because the different groups have different personal agendas. Now, there is a Vulcan delegation, and the members of the Vulcan delegation are Spock's parents, Ambassadors Sarek and Amanda. Now, that's a surprise. Oh, those are your parents? But there's obviously something going on between father and son. And it turns out that Sarek did not like Spock going into Starfleet. He wanted him to go into the Vulcan Science Academy. Now, one thing that neither Spock nor his mother knows is that Sarek is seriously ill. Now, there's a lot of tension. The delegates are kind of fighting, and there's a spy on board, and there's coded messages being transmitted, and there's a ship that goes really super fast that attacks the Enterprise. Now, there's a knife. Captain Kirk gets attacked by someone with a knife, and Spock has to go into command temporarily. But his father needs a transfusion, and Spock is the only one with the right blood type. But I can't because I must, have the ship. I must be the captain of the ship during this crisis. And it's like, we can let Scotty do it. And Spock's like, no, that wouldn't be right. It's my job, and Dad's just going to have to die. And then, Kirk kind of comes out of it, and he plays like he's better, and Spock goes and does the transfusion. And, there's so much going on, and it's just so much fun. It's an episode where we see Spock's parentage. So there's a lot of the Spock background here. Just like in yours, Chris, Galileo 7, this is one of the really big Spock episodes. And we get a lot of background on his dual identity as half human, half Vulcan. And, that leads to his choice on going to Starfleet instead of the Vulcan Science Academy. Now, one thing that's a little bit of a head scratcher is why didn't Kirk know that his first officer's father was an ambassador? That was a little bit of like, he probably should have known that. But it was definitely a good surprise for everybody during the episode. So there is that. there's an unnecessary shot of Kirk without a shirt where he's just in his room with his shirt off on the, then they call him and he answers back. And I guess he puts his shirt on and heads up to the bridge. Jane Wyatt is a standout as Spock's mom, Amanda. There is a little bit of a, Spock is like, I must donate blood. And she's like, you can't donate blood. And then later Spock is like, I can't donate blood. I have to captain the ship. You can't let your father die. So that was, a couple of scenes. It was a little tedious, and it went back and forth. But it's also another really cool episode where Captain Kirk plays dead for the hostile ship. And I always love it when they do that. We see something with Orion smugglers. And that's something that we currently have set up in the Lower Decks and Strange New Worlds shows, that where we have the Orions and their history as smuggling and why that's a prejudice against Orions. So I think that's really done well here. We get some really cool aliens, and I just love this episode. Wondered, Chris, this half human, half Vulcan aspect of Spock. Is that something that ever resonated with you, Chris?
Not initially, but as I grew to be a fan of the series, it's more than certainly did. And I really, really like the dynamic that Spock has, with this emotional side that he tries to keep contained. And you just see this internal struggle brilliantly portrayed by Leonard Nimoy, and just being tasked with this, because when somebody asks you to convey, okay, portray like you've got two emotions. I mean, you flip one switch from left to right, but there's just such a subtle nuance that Nimoy brings to this, where you can really see this internal struggle. Sure. And I think it's brilliant. I really, really totally dig it.
Yeah. I've also seen in that one, The Naked Time, where they're on this planet and they get this itchy disease. They start scratching and they become super emotional and everything. I think we saw that Spock struggled with his human side on that one. He and Nurse Chapel have a scene together. And it's kind of like, if you're watching Strange New Worlds, this is the kind of beginning of that kind of Chapel loves Spock and they have feelings for each other thing. So pretty interesting stuff.
Yeah, Professor, totally interesting stuff. I do also want to comment, this was, again, our mascot Robin, one of her favorite episodes as well. So this was a brilliant selection. Jane Wyatt is totally outstanding. This one, people maybe best know her from portraying the mother in the sitcom Father Knows Best. Yeah. And I think she does a marvelous, marvelous performance. Coincidentally, Eleanor Donahue, who played her daughter on the sitcom, also appeared in an episode of Star Trek. So that was really, really cool. Mark Lenard, not his multiple Star Trek appearances, and he's really outstanding in this one as Spock's father, Sarek. Great, great stuff here. And what I really dig about this episode is the writing, the acting. It all comes together. You've got this peril aboard the ship, and I really think it's an outstanding episode. And just when you think it's all over and everything's all done, McCoy gets the last word. It's so brilliant. He tells Spock to shut up. He tells Kirk to shut up. He tells everybody to shut up. And then he smiles at the camera and says, well, what do you know? I got the last word. McCoy has its moment. It's a great, great episode. It's a marvelous episode.
Yep, definitely a season 2 classic.
Indeed.
But now we have to move on to season 3. What's your season 3 pick, Chris?
Well, I guess we have to move on to season 3. It's so weird, Professor, because I was racking my brain and I thought, well, I'll use this episode. And then I come to find out, no, that's season 2. Well, what about this one? Oh, that's season 2 as well. Mm-hmm. Man, I had no idea that we get somewhat similar pickings in season 3. And it's weird because Turnabout Intruder is sort of universally hated, and I thought, well, I don't think it's that bad, just by coincidence. What episode of Star Trek should air last night on MeTV? But it was Turnabout Intruder, and I watched it, and I thought, wow, I can't believe how bad this is. Oh my gosh, a lot of sexist dialogue and stuff, a lot of misogyny going on, and just. I think it could work if it was written and acted a little differently. Mm. I think the plot itself isn't that bad, but does not hold up well. And certainly no fault of Sandra Smith as in her guest performance. I think she did an outstanding job in that one. So if you're going to criticize Turnabout Intruder, fair enough. But please, I wouldn't put the blame on Sandra Smith, who guested in that episode. I thought she was great. Okay, moving right along, I want to give an honorable mention to the Tholian Web. I thought it was really good. Another one, you got Gorshin in Let That Be Your Last Battlefield, but I didn't like the way that I almost picked it, but what held me back was I just didn't like Kirk in the last 5 minutes of the episode of going, well, let them do what they're going to do. It just doesn't care, and they just everybody getting access to the transporter. I mean, just, jumping on board willy-nilly. It was just kind of, I didn't like the way that, fair, but Gorshin's great. And I really like the plot, but ending, not so much. So with that said, I thought about it. I'm going to go with All Our Yesterdays, and that's one I kind of dig. And this was the penultimate episode, if I'm not mistaken. And the plot is this: the Enterprise goes to a planet, and there's a star there, and it's about to go supernova. It's going to get blown up. So I think they're there to ensure Kirk, Spock, and McCoy are there to ensure that everyone's off, everyone's safe, and they're in this kind of like a library, if you will. They encounter this time travel librarian named Mr. Atos. And through some bizarre circumstances, Spock and McCoy accidentally wind up 5,000 years ago in the planet's ice age. And Kirk winds up that's sort of in a place that kind of looks like 17th century England. I don't know how that works, but sort of kind of Three Musketeers vibe, and there they are. So Spock and McCoy are in this really Arctic region, and they encounter a woman named Zarabeth, played by Mariette Hartley. And I got to say, Mariette Hartley, if you give it some thought, it's going to be a perfect candidate for one of those That Guy in That Show segments, because I think she's outstanding, and she's got a lot of great guest credits from The Rockford Files to Twilight Zone, tons Incredible Hulk, for which she won an Emmy, and I really hope we get to pivot and focus on her at some point in our show. So in this episode, it's 5,000 years in the past. Spock sort of reverts to this unevolved, unadvanced self. He falls in love with Zarabeth. And typically, Spock is going to be trying to figure a way to get out of here, but when Zarabeth says, nope, you can't go back, Spock kind of takes this at face value and says, you know what? Hey, being stuck here in a cave with you, I'm resigned to this fate. I'll take it, And McCoy finally wakes up and he's going like, Spock, we got to help Jim. We got to get out of here. We got to go back to the Enterprise. And Spock's kind of like, nah, I'm going to stick around here with Mariette Hartley. Hartley's there. She's a convict. And she kind of misleads Spock, thinking, hey, you cannot go back. Your atoms will be, disintegrated if you try to go back. And Spock takes it at face value. But in this episode, we've got such a conflict because whereas in the past episodes of the show, McCoy would sort of give Spock these insults and Spock would sort of dismiss them and coolly come back, if have you. Spock loses it. He basically says, he pulls up McCoy, looks him in the eye and says, I don't like what you're doing and I hate this. Don't call me, that again. And the conflict is really unsettling when you see Spock losing sort of control of his emotions. Yeah. He is out there, and I think it's a marvelous, marvelous performance. It's an unsettling moment, but it's a key moment of that particular episode. It's really, really good. Of course, it has sort of that all's well that ends well ending. It's sort of, I take that back because, Hartley's character, Zarabeth, is sort of resigned to her fate, and she misses Spock and gives this final glance back as Spock and McCoy go back. Touching episode, and Hartley gives a great performance, and I would expect no less, per usual. She's really, really outstanding in this one. So, I felt with not a lot to choose from, I went with All Our Yesterdays from season 3. Professor, I'm kind of curious to see what you picked, but I'm cheating and looking at the notes, so I'll let you take it. What was your choice for your underrated season 3 episode?
Well, I do like that one that you were just talking about. I especially like the librarian, Mr. Ataz, or A to Z, played by Ian Wolfe. Great.
Thank you.
Choice.
Thank you.
Great choice. So this one is definitely offbeat. This one is the Spectre of the gun. So, the Enterprise is flying around space and they are told by some alien to stay away, and they don't stay away. And as a punishment for ignoring the warning, the Melkot condemn Captain Kirk and his landing party to which includes Spock and Bones and Scotty and Chekhov. And they decide that they're going to punish them and check out. They realize they're from Earth, so they're going to give them a punishment that is applicable to Earth. So they decide that the 1881 gunfight at the OK Corral is a good way to punish them. So put them on the bad side. So they all are now playing Clanton Gang members, and in this very strange, which looks like the set of a Western movie, and with a red sky in the back. So they're trying to figure out how to get out of here. Chekhov is shot and killed, but it turns out they decide that all of this is in their mind because they do some things that should work, like chemically, they know it should work and it doesn't. So they're thinking that they've been hypnotized and things are happening that they don't realize, and it's all in their mind. So Spock mind melds them so they don't believe that when they're getting shot that the bullets are real. So the Melkot realize now that the Federation is good, so that, even though that they had the chance to kill some people, they don't. So the Federation people are good, so maybe we can make friends. A couple of things that are interesting about this episode. This is another one that, if we can just play nice with, aliens, that we can ultimately make friends with them. And I think this is one of those episodes. The mind meld is used 3 times here. So I think that's a little overused, in my opinion, but, it's still pretty good. One thing that the reason I picked it, this is one of those Star Trek episodes that has the background of the alien sky is just all red. So it's almost like they just took a white wall and they shone some red lights on it, and they saved a ton of money in, set decorating. And in a lot of cases, I see those episodes and I think those are kind of like lesser quality ones. However, here, I don't think that this is a lesser quality. I think this is a very good episode. There's a lot of good back and forth between Bones and Scotty and Spock and Kirk and the whole thing. I was kind of interested in kind of what your thought of some of these other kind of episodes that have these like very plain sets. And if you have any vibe, does that seem cheap to you? Like, do you think any different about the episodes that have that kind of setting?
Professor, see if you can stay with me. Yes, I agree with you. It does seem cheesy and cheap, because when Star Trek goes outdoors, you could really get some vividness of it, and it really, really shines. Some episodes that come to mind that had some outdoor scenes, Operation Annihilate, Wednesday's Child with Julie Newmar, Arena, where he fights the Gorn, Kirk fights the Gorn. Good stuff there. Yep. That said, am I a fan of this particular one? No, but I think Star Trek put a heck of a lot more effort into this as opposed to season 3 of Batman, where just so many scenes were just on this dark set with drapes and everything, and just making it to seem like an exterior that totally looks unlike an exterior that you've ever seen by merely propping things up to look like a storefront. And you could evidently see that this is inside, and it's not fooling anybody. It's at least Star Trek's making an effort with respect to, okay, we don't have a lot to work with budget wise, but we're going to do the best we can. Whereas I think Batman really was short shrift with just from comparing one series to another on their season 3 interior shots that are supposed to be exterior. Star Trek did it a lot better than Batman did. And I feel so bad because Batman just, you can't prop up a frame and just say, oh, that's okay, this is the exterior, and then we'll call it a day. They tried, at least in this episode, and for that I give them some credit. Also, too, I really love the shot where there's like a profile shot where the guys are looking from the viewer's point of view. They're looking off to straight ahead, but it's from left to right. And they're all lined up in such a way where you can see each character's profile. You can see Chekhov and Scotty and Kirk and McCoy, and they're all lined up, and you can just see the vividness of the color of their shirts that they're wearing. Yep. And it's a great shot when they see this oncoming guise of the fellas about to shoot them down.
Yep.
I really wasn't a fan of it, but I think as I grew older, and then for comparison's sake, this episode tried, and I think the director, who, pardon me, eludes me with respect to his name, but I think they really tried to pull it off for what little they had, and I have to presumably think it was due to budget concerns. Yeah, I can see it does look cheesy and cheap in some places, but at least they tried. I mean, the way to Eden, with the conclusion of that one, you could tell you're supposed to be outside, but you could tell this is indoors. With all the slush one here, at least there was an effect that this is supposed to kind of be creepy. This is supposed to have this kind of a color backdrop, but we're still going to sell it as 1881 in the OK Corral. Yeah. And this is where we're going to put it in Tombstone. And then this is what it's going to look like. And that said, it works in this kind of spooky level, and I think they sell it, and I have to applaud the effort. I think not quite there, but at least they really they tried. Yeah. What do you think, Professor? Was it overused, and did you buy it, or did you take when you first saw it, oh, this is cheap, and this is what you always thought, or do you at least kind of appreciate the effort? What say you?
I always thought this episode was a bad episode. So, I, like a lot of Trek original series fans, had, a lot of the books, and there'd be lists of episodes, maybe little pictures of the episodes. And I always looked at this one and would decide not to watch Spectre or the Gun, would pick something else because of these kind of red sky, cheesy looking kind of thing. But then somebody mentioned to me that this is not it's not bad like you think it is. And I gave it another shot, and I watched it again and really did enjoy it. I do note that the sky, this red sky background, is very similar to what was used in the sky in Amok Time when they were on the planet Vulcan. That had a little bit of a variation to it that this one didn't have, but still pretty similar. There are a couple other, there's a couple episodes of Star Trek that have really cool kind of painted backgrounds, stars, moons and stuff in the sky, and this is not one of them. But yeah, this episode I think is unfairly maligned as one of the very bad Trek episodes. And I don't think it's one of the best, but I think it's I think it's underrated. I think it's an underrated episode. So,
directed by Vincent McCoy. I just checked, and I want to make sure I got that out there, who is certainly a veteran of the directing world in the series itself. So yeah, I could tell, but at least, they put some effort into it. Yeah. So I give this one a pass. And yeah, like you, I don't think it's that bad of an episode.
Yeah, I like
underrated. Day of the Dove, I almost considered as well, one, but because we had Michael and Sarah in there, Susan Howard, they were great. I went with the other way did a little pivot with All Our Yesterdays, but I want to make sure I got like an honorable mention for Day of the Dove too with the guest cast.
Fantastic. So these are our Frenzy faves.
Not just another comic or day. These are our